From America's beginning, the land was tied to Christian ideals. When he was elected president, George Washington preached to the people of the vital importance of the morals found in Christianity, remarking earnestly, religion and morality are indispensable support. With such a strong hold upon Christianity from the early settlement of Jamestown in 1607 and Plymouth Rock in 1620, the religion had a deep influence on the personal growth and ethics in the United States. But is the legacy left by early American Christian evangelicals one that can still be seen today? Is there a link between biblical teaching from the 18th century and the ways in which colonists structured their societies? In order to answer these inquiries, the evangelical roots planted by John Winthrop, Jonathan Edwards, George Whitefield, and Samuel Davies will be unearthed. In 1630, the Arborella arrived off the eastern coast of North America, and among her numbers was the man John Winthrop. Born in January of 1588, John Winthrop would go from his home in Edwardstone, United Kingdom, to preach a sermon titled A Model of Christian Charity, which implored other preachers and members of his congregation to view themselves as a city upon a hill and to lead set-apart lives. The 17th century preacher also became the first governor of the colonists of the Massachusetts Bay Company. As preacher and governor, Winthrop challenged American colonists also to live set apart and with godly character. Winthrop's words resonated with early colonists, leading many of them to adopt his set apart by God mindset. This mentality wove into their societies, thus shaping the American ethical Christian culture on a grassroots level. A collection that provides a great deal of insight into the personal and professional life of Winthrop is the Winthrop Family Papers, housed in the library of the Massachusetts Historical Society. This collection contains a vast amount of information, from personal correspondences between Winthrop and his wife to letter exchanges between the governor and freightliners. In a letter written in 1637, Winthrop details his testimony of faith by chronicling his spiritual journey from 10 years of age to his 49th year. It is clear to read in this document of the personal devotion Winthrop had to God and how fervently he wished for colonists to share in his joy found in living a set-apart life. Francis J. Beamer's Remembering and Forgetting John Winthrop and the Puritan Founders details the devotion of Winthrop to sharing the ethical principles found in the Bible with colonists. Ivy Schweitner's John Winthrop's Model of American Affiliation reveals the impact of John Winthrop's biblical advice to colonists and how he compares the relationship between colonists and God as that of a relationship between the bride and bridegroom. Winthrop's leadership helped establish a framework for self-governance and community cohesion, setting a precedent for future American values such as self-reliance, self-responsibility, and moral integrity. But more than this political framework, Winthrop's spiritual impact reached far beyond into the hearts of men and women in early America. His Christian ethics impacted early settlers to create a society reflective of Christian morals. Not merely farmers, merchants, and other settlers who were drawn to the words of Winthrop. Jonathan Edwards, born in 1703 in East Windsor, Connecticut, was educated at Yale College, but his true accolades and notoriety came from his leadership during the Puritan revival movement. His most famous sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, exemplifies his fiery rhetoric and emphasis on personal salvation. It is clear to read in Edwards' work how influential Winthrop was. Edwards' spiritual journey and theological perspectives were deeply influenced by the foundational vision laid out by John Winthrop. Winthrop's aspirational city upon a hill mentality created a powerful precedent for the moral and communal ideals that Edwards would perpetuate. Edwards' 1758 treaty, Original Sin, was a work which directed itself towards early Americans, in this case, New Englanders. Mark A. Knoll, an American historian, wrote in his article, America's God, From Jonathan Edwards to Abraham Lincoln, that original sin suggested that all humanity took part seminally in Adam's fall. Edwards hoped to show that individuals were both responsible for their own sinfulness and bound by a fallen nature until converted by God's sovereign grace. Edwards' thesis on the Christian mentality of original sin seeped into the minds of colonists, urging them to lead set-apart, morally contrite lives. Edwards' sermons and writings not only ignited the passions of colonists, but the minister, George Whitefield. Born in 1714, Gloucester, England, Whitefield was renowned for his powerful oratory and dramatic preaching style. Beginning in 1739, Whitefield traveled extensively throughout the colonies, from New England to Georgia, delivering powerful and emotive sermons that drew large crowds and stirred the hearts of early Americans. His preaching emphasized personal conversion and the necessity of a heartfelt relationship with God, which resonated deeply with many colonists. In his sermon, Whitefield preached to colonists of becoming born again, experiencing a rebirth, and for people to be self-aware of their own sin. In his sermon, The Necessity and Benefits of Religious Society, Whitefield spoke on how important it is for a community to be centered in godly character, to take personal responsibility, and to work with your fellow man, stating the whole body of mankind should work together, that the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of thee, nor again the hand to the foot, I have no need of thee. Samuel Davies was captivated by the work of George Whitefield. Born in 1723 in Hanover County, Virginia, Davies was a passionate preacher who toured throughout the colonies, spreading evangelical fervor and promoting religious education. The preaching style of Davies reached a remarkable number of people, touching the hearts and minds of listeners in a theologically emotive manner. The works of Ian Murray, who wrote Revival and Revivalism, the Making and Marring of American Evangelism, and Henry Mayer, who published Son of Thunder, Patrick Henry, and the American Revolution, are just two of the historians who detail the emotive orating prowess of Davies. The work from historian and early American Kevin Sweeney, titled Early American Religious Tradition, Native Visions, and Christian Providence, speaks on the enduring legacy of the ideals cast by these founding evangelicals, remarking how the city on a hill mentality aided in structuring the ethical merits of the largely secular United States. Historian Charles S. Cohen's The Colonization of British North America as an Episode of the History of Christianity also reveals the response by colonists to sermons. In one of his sermons titled The Method of Grace, George Whitefield noted how essential faithful ministers are, stating, God can send a nation or people no greater blessing than to give them faithful, sincere, upright ministers, looking to the faces and lending ear to the voices of evangelicals such as Winthrop, Edwards, Whitefield, and Davies. Colonists saw their society as embodiments of biblical teaching, where they could practice their devotion to Christ and shape their laws with Christian doctrine. For example, the Puritan New England legal codes were based on the Bible's moral precepts, including strict regulations on personal conduct and community behavior. This intertwining of religious and civil law aimed to foster a just and orderly society that was saturated in Christian values. Thus, at the core of the colonial ethical life was the Bible, which provided the moral and ethical framework for the community. In analyzing the messages from these early American evangelicals, it is moving to witness the impact they had on people's hearts and minds. Looking at the influence of Winthrop, Edwards, Whitefield, Davies, builds a clearer image of the personal devotions early Americans had to their Christian faith, and how this Christian faith was supplemented by the sermons and writings of these preachers. From here, it is clear to see the impact they had on the nation and the shaping of ethics in early American colonies. The impact of these evangelicals did not cease in the early years of America's foundation. The words of these preachers of old echo through the United States today, and the foundational impact of Christian principles remains a significant thread in the tapestry of American society.